Wait, you all, this is the founder of the BYP network, and this is the founder of Afrocella. Y'all, give them a hand. These are incredible people right here. And I would have to say the old name is Afrocella, and we are now called Afrofuture.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're looking into the future. So this panel is called United Across Borders, and obviously these two individuals are doing just that. With Abdul himself, obviously he's bringing, if y'all haven't heard of Afrofuture, what he does is brings people from around the world to experience Africa, but also Ghana specifically. And then obviously you have created a network of more than 150,000 members, and now not only in London, but now she's brought it to the US, so definitely doing that. But my question is, why is it important in both of your industries to unite globally?
You can start.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much to the BYP for having me for the second time. I'm happy to be here with you guys. For us, there was a lot of conversation happening around early 2013, 2015 about cultural appropriation and how people felt about people either wearing things that was reminiscent of Africa or things that they just didn't understand. And for me, I saw it as an educational opportunity rather than something to chastise somebody. If somebody deciding to wear a daishiki is because they want to get close to something that they don't understand about rather than they're trying to make fun of something. And then on the continent also, from a continental perspective, being that you grew up in a space where everyone looks like you don't really understand the nuances that people outside of the environment that you're used to being a part of are going through. So I just felt that we needed to create a space where, one, we can just kind of celebrate each other, but also educate ourselves about each other. And the mechanism we used to do that was through food, music, culture, fashion, and art. We felt that if people understood these four things about you, they had some sort of understanding about your culture, and that forced conversation. And that was the beginning pillars and why we started to create a movement to Ghana.
Well said, well said.
Amazing. And I mentioned it earlier when I started the Dress Today, that for me, it's just, we're the same. We are actually the same globally. What we go through in one city is the same in another city. And, my heritage is actually Nigerian, so my mum and dad are born and raised in Nigeria, but I was born in the UK. And what I found quite interesting in 2018, I've been to Nigeria a few times, but in 2018, I went back more as like the diaspora. They go back in Christmas time to party or kind of all come back from around the world, like Europe, America, anywhere, and we're all there over Christmas time. So I know most people go Ghana now, right, like the year of the return. And I remember being there as part of the diaspora, but then actually understanding what's going on in Nigeria, like seeing kind of the poverty, or there was this little girl begging for money who looked like she was like 3 years old. And I remember feeling so kind of overwhelmed, like, hold on, this is actually like my country, this is my heritage, and we're so far behind. Like Nigeria, like Africa is so far behind. And even when I would hear the stories as well, like women, for example, can't advance their careers basically in Nigeria because, just we know the reasons why. It's just like, wow, and I'm here in the UK kind of advocating for black professionals, but we're so far behind even over there. Like, what will change it? And then even when I think about, and I know we spoke about AI, we spoke about advancement in technology, we know there's biases in that, and again, we're being left behind. So for me, as a community, we're actually being left behind. And it will accelerate if we're not there, if we're not in these conversations, if we're not in these rooms, if we're not getting these jobs and these roles, it will continue, And so to advance globally is like, we have to, because until we're good everywhere, we're good nowhere. And that's how I see it, because they'll see you, okay, you're doing well, you're the only one there, but then I go and sit in the metro or the tube and I'm seeing an ad for, come and, help this young kid in Africa. And then they look at that and they look at you, or you open the magazine or the newspaper and it's like, oh, knife crime again, and a big black boy's image there, died at 18. And again, you're sitting there looking at you. It's our community. So no matter what you achieve, no one knows. You don't have your title on your forehead. You're just sitting there as a black person, so they just see a black person. And our title shouldn't be what makes us feel different. We are still black. So for me, we have to do it globally, because if we don't do it globally, it won't make the impact that is needed.
Well said. So when we talk about, yes, well said. When we talk about your visions for each of you all, for the companies, some people may say, like, having a silo vision, like, we understand, like, a silo movement, rather. Like, why not just focus on Ghanaians and, connecting with Ghanaians? And for you, why not just focus on having a network in London? Why is a global movement or a global vision important?
Well, the pandemic happened in China. It started in China, but it shut down the whole world. And that's just a middle way of just kind of showing how we're all interconnected, right? When the airlines stopped flying, we all was in our house on Zoom. And that's how my first interaction with BYP, right? We were Zoomed out, lived out. We got a bunch of verses that were pretty good. Some of them were pretty good. Some of them were boring, right? We had, but we had all those experiences. And I think that for us, Afrofuture is an opportunity for us to unite the global Black diaspora, right? What we've seen is we know the statistics tell us that 1 in 4 people by 2050 will be African. Africa is the youngest continent in the world, and you can see that the whole world is racing towards Africa right now, right? The U.S. Vice President was just in Ghana, she was in Zambia, she was in Tanzania. All of these countries are reaching out to the different African countries. The BRICS are trying to develop a stronghold on the continent. What does that mean to you? That just means that essentially the world is connected in certain ways, and each superpower is looking for an ally. And I just think that the best ally to Black people are Black people. So for us, how do we bridge that gap? We bridge that gap by educating ourselves about each other, right? So if I'm in Ghana and I want to have breakfast, I'm going to have kose. Right? But if I'm in Nigeria, it might be akara, right? That might look like a dumpling in the Caribbean. And I think that although we all reference it very differently and we all experience it very differently, essentially our experiences are pretty similar. And that's because of the historical, historical nature of where we come from and how we came to be where we are. And if we can demystify some of the things or barriers that we have amongst each other by educating ourselves, then we can build a coalition that allows us to be able to work together and develop together and grow together. And I think that the story you told about seeing an ad in the train station or in TV, I mean, I grew up right here in New York. I'm from the Bronx. All right? BX, what's up? Yeah, in the building. You know what time it is. Right? So, I always knew that, Africans didn't have flies all around their face because, I know where my parents are from. I know what they have to do, but most people who don't have that experience or don't have anyone in their family who have that experience don't know. So they are afraid, or they are, ignorant about what is going on the continent. And we don't have mechanisms or media to be able to kind of tell what everyday lives are for young Africans. People in Africa are watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and all of these shows to model their life after. They don't even have opportunities of things to watch that reference themselves, right? So our festival exists in this space to be able to create that content that, one, educates the world, or gives the world a new perspective about what it means to come to Africa or do business in Africa or experience it. But also it gives us an opportunity to communicate amongst each other, whether it's Francophone, Lusophone, Anglophone, Africa. We all exist in our separate ways. In separate dialects and cultures. I could keep going, but pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, yes. So before we get to you to answer that question, if you want, essentially what you're saying is the more positive stuff we put out about Africa, the more we can inspire investments.
I don't think about it as positive or negative. I think most times when we think about going to Africa, because of our experience, we go back there with a mentality that we're coming to fix something. I don't necessarily buy into that mentality. I think that there are a lot of amazing people doing amazing things on the continent. Before we had Cash App here, they were using mobile money in Ghana. Before people were getting on the blockchain and sending money through the blockchain, people in Nigeria were doing money transfers via the blockchain. So in many ways, their circumstances has allowed them to adjust to make a lot more forward forward movement things that we're now catching up to. Right? I remember going to London in 2006, and you guys had the chip on your debit card. Yeah. We are just now getting that maybe 5-6 years ago. But this is 2006, London already had the chip, so they were looking at my card like my card was fake, right? So I just didn't understand why we didn't have the chip or that experience. So, really it's just about educating yourselves, right? About what is going on in other parts of the world, things like Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. They have all their flaws, but they have amazing things about connecting people in seconds, right? When I was younger, my dad sent us back to Ghana.
You were naughty.
You were naughty. I don't want to say I was naughty, but he didn't want us to be naughty, right? Right. So, but you had to wait by a phone for a call. Now I can pick up my phone call right now and FaceTime somebody directly in Ghana without pulling a calling card. I used to have to go to the corner store to buy my mom a calling card, right? Or, I remember my parents actually recorded what they wanted to say, and then they would put it in a bag with somebody going to Africa in order for them to be able to see. Because at that time, they didn't have video calls. But WhatsApp, FaceTime allows us the ability to call people in seconds. Right, we didn't have that before. That type of connectivity changes the way we should interact with each other.
I want to jump in there. I feel like when I hear what Abdul's saying, there is so much opportunity for us. Like, if you look at the powers that be, it's changing. I mean, Russia and China, they're becoming the biggest powerhouses, and the West isn't as much. But they need the black talent. They need black professionals. We are part of the driving force for change as well. And we're seeing that in the UK, in London, right? We went through Brexit. So all of a sudden now they're going to Africa to bring more people over, to fill the jobs, to kind of do the work. And that's the truth about what's going on. We are needed, our talent, our skills are needed, and there's so much opportunity in tech, in loads of different industries and organizations. But I think within the community though, we know there's xenophobia. When I was coming out here to America, I was like, okay, I hope I'm received well. I'm from London, from UK. I hope it's okay, because I've seen things like, I think it's the African descent. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right.
The ADOS.
ADOS, folks talking about ADOS. But also in Africa as well, when Nigerians go over to, let's say, South Africa, they're being killed. Tribalism, again, in different countries. Oh, you're Igbo, you're Yoruba, you're Hausa. There's so many fractions within our community. So because we're so divided, and as I said, divide and conquer, that's why we continue to stay down. That's why we continue to not progress the way that we should. We should be helping each other instead of kind of, you hear of the crabs in a bucket mentality, like, I'm going to be the only one here. Let me close the door on other people because, if they're there too, then what if there's only one space? But we have to move past all of that because there are opportunities and it is our time. And again, like I said, it's not for us to be left behind. It's for us to come together, collaborate, and just show what we're about as a community.
Yes, I like that. It's definitely about unity. So speaking about that, can either of you talk about a time that cross-collaboration has actually worked for you so that someone in the audience can learn from it?
I mean, I can jump in. I mean, even now, even today, right? But there's so many examples. In 2020, there was NSARS. I'm not sure if people are aware of it, but essentially in Nigeria, there's the police department, kind of the special unit, was really just killing civilians for no reason on the street. So all the youths kind of campaigned against it. I wouldn't say rioted, they campaigned, but they were being shot in the crowd, essentially. So we over at BYP Network, we just mobilized. We have a platform that we were using, like a tech platform, and we were able to connect with about 600 people on the ground in Nigeria, with 600 people in the UK, or just our members, just to connect with them, to send them money, to give them any opportunities that they needed. And it was powerful, like the case studies on our website. And for us, that was like a cross-collaboration where it's like, okay, we don't know what to do. We're not there. We're not on the ground. But if we use our members, if we use the black diaspora, we can give back. Like each one teach one. If we just grab one other person, that's 100,000 of us grab another 100,000 people. That's how change happens, and that's our mindset, and that's something that worked really well for us.
Yeah, I'm aligned. I think collaboration and cooperation is probably the best thing you could do in your personal career, in your personal life, and in any business that you decide to develop. I think that a lot of us you're focused on competing with each other as opposed to working with each other. And that distracts from what is a greater opportunity that can exist. We've existed, and we have for the past 6-7 years, and we've grown to a 30,000 people festival over 2 days because of collaboration. Right? I never had I never had that much money when we first started this. We never had a lot of the partners that we decided to work with, like Meta, YouTube, Sony, Instagram, Audio Mac, you name them we've worked with. The first time they've ever activated on the continent was with our company. So we had to take a lot of risk, and the only way you can do those kind of things is by collaboration and cooperation. So this year we partner with a company called La Sunday in Côte d'Ivoire. And why that was important to us is because Africa is split in, by who colonized it, right? So there's Anglophone, which is English speaking, Francophone, which is French speaking, Lusophone, Spanish, and so on and so forth. And we wanted to bridge that gap between the Francophone and Anglophone Africa. So we partner with a company in Francophone Africa, La Sunday, and that's how we're able to do that. Or whether it's in London, we have a party coming up with DLT at the end of August. And that's our way of bridging the gap between the work that we're doing in Africa and what we want to do in London to reach that demographic. Or in Germany, in Berlin, we collaborated with a Hype Fest, right? Another festival that's building in hip hop in Germany, and we wanted to be able to work with them, so we went there, we booked the talent from their stage, brought them to Ghana, and that's how we keep our circle going and opening up our market as well.
Nice, well said. Collaboration is key. I guess it makes sense. So talk to me though. So essentially, what we're trying to do is to develop Africa. Why is the development of Africa important to everyone in this room? Or why should it matter?
I mean, everybody here has a cell phone in their hands. I mean, well, the materials from that cell phone comes from the Congo, right? Right, the batteries in there come from the Congo. Everybody here eats chocolate for the most part, right? Ghana is the second highest producer of chocolate in the world. You know what I mean? A lot of the resources that we use and we take for granted are coming from the continent. The problem is the continent, one, doesn't have the leadership that is allowing it to be able to gain the benefits of the resources coming from the continent. As a result, although there's a massive amount of talent on the continent, there are not a lot of job opportunities, and I think some of the opportunities that we get to do with people like myself and her, who are technically from the continent, but also in the diaspora, we get to use our know-how and the experience that we have to create opportunities for others. My company hires about 6,500 people a year. That's 6,500 people that can get a paycheck from the work that we do, and that's opening up the market. And as a result of us being there, other festivals have come. Other businesses have opened, right? We have restaurants that are opening. We have Airbnbs that are developing, all because we've decided to put our property right there in Ghana. And I'm sure you can speak to the same thing.
Yeah, I think something I want to kind of touch on is that for us, it's not about saying, okay, what can I do over in Africa? What can I do here? It's just what you can do anywhere you are, right? That's the key, right? If you grow up in Harlem, Brooklyn, Bronx, London, East London, you can see what's going on in your community. What can you do to help, right? You might just mentor someone. That's big deal. That person, because of you, is going to grow. They're going to grow their career, or maybe they won't be in, gang violence because you've helped them. So the key thing is about helping someone. I mean, my mum had this great idea, God rest her soul, where she was like, when we go back to the continent, even just for party, just for fun, okay, why don't we volunteer when we're there? Right? So you go out there just because you're going out there on holiday, but see if there's something you can do out there and just volunteer. If you're someone who is in tech, data scientist or software engineer or even a doctor, whatever you are, when you go on holiday, when you go to the Caribbean, when you go to Africa, see how you can help when you're there as well. That's all it is. It's about us helping how we can and remembering that it's a numbers game, right? So you doing it, you might think, it's not much impact, but no, that person next to you is doing it as well. So is that person, and that is the numbers that makes the impact and the change. But we all must be doing something, and as long as you're doing something, then that's fantastic, because then that's when we'll see the change that we need. That's the key.
Yeah, Yeah, and also Africa is just the youngest continent in the world. So majority of the workforce in your adult age are going to be from the continent. So a lot of business focus is shifting to the continent. So ideally, you've just gotten inside information. If I'm you, I'm putting notifications on Google for anything that's in the industry that I like to tell me that information about what's happening in Africa and how I can be a part of it.
Nice. So I'm getting the signal, but before we end, because it seems very quickly, I want to give you all the opportunity to give any advice to young professionals out here.
I would just say be curious. I think curiosity has, sometimes we get embarrassed to be curious because we think people are going to make fun of us because we don't know something that we think we should know. But I would always say be curious, stay teachable, be always willing to learn. And pretty much, yeah, if you keep those three things and remain steadfast, I think that you should be able to succeed in anything you want to do.
And I think for me, again, something I'd say my mum said is, if not you, then who? That's it.
Nice. Now I would like to add, for all the Africans out there, you don't have to be a doctor, lawyer, or whatever. With unity and collaboration, entrepreneurship for the right reasons does work. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. So now we have Q&A.
Cool. So this is a really good one. As an African founder acting on the global scene, what is one thing you wish someone would have told you earlier, and what is one thing you would have done differently?
To be fair, I don't think I would have did anything differently. Because, a lot of people get focused on the beginning and the ending. But the best part of any entrepreneur journey is what's in between that. In between that is where you grow. In between that is where you become your real self. In between that is where you identify, how strong you are, where you can improve, and things of that nature. So I would say I wouldn't change anything about my journey because my journey has defined who I am today, and has shown me who I can be. As far as what I wish people could tell me, there's so many things I wish people could tell me. I wish they could tell me how to find money easier. I wish they could tell me, how to sleep sometimes, and, staying up all night isn't going to make you any better than, the person who gets at least 6-7 hours of sleep a night. But yeah, that's why I said stay teachable, right? and always be a student of whatever game you're playing.
On my side, I'd say, it's okay to be a dreamer. It's okay to be a bit naive. And it's okay to kind of let that fuel you. Because sometimes when reality hits, then the motivation can slow down. And what I mean by that is that it is difficult. The journey is difficult, and it will be difficult. But if it was easy, everyone else will be doing it. So sometimes it could be a case of, I've got this vision, I want to kind of do this big thing, and someone will tell you, oh, no, that's not possible. Because their reality is hit, right? They believe it's not possible from what they've seen, but try and ignore that as much as you can. And even if you're seeing a glimpse of it, just move away from that, ignore that, and stay dreaming, stay in that naivety to just keep fueling you, because then things will happen that people think can't happen, and you'll surprise yourself as well. So, yeah, that was my advice.
So some people say only Africans can solve African problems because they cause their own problems through their leaders in government.
Wait, say that one more time.
What'd you say?
Say it one more time. We missed the last part.
Sorry. This thing is moving real fast. Sorry. Some people say only Africans can solve African problems because their own problems, because they cause their own problems through their leaders in government. Is politics a way out? Because you mentioned something about leadership. So, if anything, what can leadership do to make things much better for opportunities in Africa?
Wow, this is a tough question. I would say NSARS was a great moment in time for young African leaders who are willing to challenge the status quo. It was amazing to see how the entire world and the global black diaspora was able to mobilize to send Nigeria a message about police brutality. I thought that was an amazing moment We've seen the same thing happen in Egypt, where young people were just kind of like fed up with the government and decided to take the square. I think that as we find our voices online and we realize that even if you have 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 up to 10,000 followers, you have a voice. And that voice is very important, and how you use it is very important. So, I mean, my message to young leaders is to really challenge your leaders, actually do your best and due diligence to kind of know about their platforms, why they're standing, and go beyond the parties and the partisanship, and just really go for truth. And I think that as more diasporans are moving back home and young Africans are standing up to the government, I think we'll see the change that we need to within the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's great. And just to add to that, so I have an economics background, and there's this really good book I highly recommend called The Economic Hitman. I don't know if some people might have read it, and it says what's truly going on. Like, it's not that, yeah, we have terrible leaders in Africa, but they're being fueled by the West, right? They are, let's be honest, like, they're being fueled, and the leaders that the young don't want are the leaders getting into power, not because they want them there, but because they're being put there. And it's a really, really good book just to say how it all works. And ultimately, it is, of course, for the resources. And so, for example, again, going back to Nigeria, they just had elections, and everyone was really going for this young leader called Obi. And this older man who's like 86, called Tinubu, he won, right? And his campaign was, it's my turn, as in, it's my turn, I should just be leader. It's funny, but he didn't win because he was voted. It was a scam. It was a scam election. They were killing people, or were beating people, and they were changing the electoral results. It was a complete scam. So they're feeling disengaged and disenfranchised that even when they try, even when they campaign, the wrong people are being put in power. I mean, it's so bad that the UK leader, who's unelected as well, he actually congratulated Tinubu straight away. He's the first person. So for us, it's like, it's easy to kind of look and say they cause their own problems, but do they cause their own problems? It's bigger than that. And I think it's for us to always be educated, to read about it, and just see what we can do. But we at least need to just know what is actually going on.
What's the name of that book?
Economic Hitman.
Cool. So for first-generation Americans / Brits, how do we teach our elders who are in senior positions that proximity to whiteness is not the key to success?
Bars.
Hey, run it back real quick. Run it back.
Wow, I said it too fast? Okay. For first-generation Americans / Brits, how do we teach our elders who are in senior positions that proximity to whiteness is not the key to success?
I mean, I often tell a lot of my friends to give your parents grace. Give your parents a lot of grace. We have a lot of opportunities and resources that have taught us how to speak, have taught us how to engage with people, have taught us about how to be more thoughtful, how to be more respectful about others and how we speak. When I was growing up, I don't believe my mom or my dad had that experience, right? They were young people who wanted a better opportunity for themselves, so they brought themselves to America. They didn't have any family in the 80s. It was just them and hustling until they built their businesses, and then I was able to luckily be born here and then grow up and have this life that I live. So, it's one thing to try and correct them. It's another thing to also give them grace. And the reason why I say that is the only type of success they've seen is that proximity to whiteness, as you described, right? Getting an office job, getting a job that's 9 to 5, that's consistent, that's going to pay you with no questions asked. They don't know about the gig economy that most of us are participating in. They don't know about, they just want to be able to provide, take care of you, take care of their family back home, and have enough savings to build their house, and go out on outer rings or weddings or things of that nature. Like, those are things that are important to my parents, right? So I think that it's very important that we give them grace, and you can take the advice and take what's good from it, and know that at some point you might be smarter than your parents, and you have to just do that respectfully.
Yeah, and just to jump in, I mean, look, we know there was 400 years of slavery in America, right? We know that there's colorism. We know that, those in the house were light-skinned, those on the field were dark-skinned. We know that in the media, in the music industry, it's the light-skinned people who are, that are doing better, essentially. And we know there is this continuous kind of fight between light-skinned, dark-skinned, regardless. And so if that's what they've seen, right, and that's their view of, okay, and also just to be in certain rooms, put your head down, be palatable, say yes, sir, ma'am. That's what they've grown, and that's what they've seen in terms of success. So that's why they will then pass that on, saying that's how you succeed. But our generation is different. We know different, right? We've got the internet, we've got Twitter, we've got social media. So we're able to move past that and understand that, okay, that is not the only route. And there's ways around that. And actually, let's support different people from different backgrounds. Let's gain opportunities. Let's help each other. So you can you can try and educate them. If you're not educating them, then just take the bits that you can from them, right? Be like, okay, mom, okay, dad. But you know the truth, right? And that's what's key. But as Abdul said, give them grace, right? That's what they grew up in. That's what they saw. So they're just trying to pass down the knowledge that they believe will help you succeed. And I'm sure we'll pass down knowledge to our children, what we believe will help them succeed. But things will be different from them too. So hopefully they too will give us grace.
So ultimately, thank you for the. Ultimately, I feel like give them grace, yes, but I feel like parents are only doing as best as they can, and so that when you know better, then you do better. But I feel like, yeah. But anyways, thank you all so much for being here. Let's give them another round of applause.